Hey, what's up guys? Back out in the shop today, and we're just unboxing some things for what we're going to be doing next on the car. And we're going to be doing some super serious stuff involving mounting the motor. So I literally just got this in. This is the motor plate in which is going to mount the motor. So if you guys have never seen one of these before, which is pretty common, a lot of people know about that. It's an aluminum plate, 1/4 inch thick. You basically cut this to fit around your frame rail, make a mount for it. This goes through the water pump bolts, which you just double gasket. And then these two go through 2 bolt holes on the side next to the timing cover. And this goes around the timing cover. And then your motor is held in by this and the trans mount. Now I do have the motor in here in about the final position, and it's looking pretty good. Not very well lit, but I have to notch that for the distributor cap. So this came in early, which means I can get, tomorrow's New Year's Day, so I have a day off to get cracking on this. And let me say, this is actually a really nice piece. There's no hard edges, everything's been deburred, and it's a really nice piece of billet aluminum 1/4 inch thick plate made for this. And it just so happens, if you noticed where it came out, this actually fits perfectly between the frame rails. So there's going to be a lot less cutting involved, but we'll get to that tomorrow. This is the other part of what I ordered. That's just packing. That's just magazines I get every other week. I got a new dipstick for my new oil pan. New rear main seal. This is a new oil pickup. And this is a new oil pan gasket. So you can't see, but I'll show you guys next time the motor's out. There's a new pan on there. I ordered a Summit Racing pan. It has a built-in like a windage tray almost. Basically a mesh screen that wraps around the crank with a crank scraper and a baffled oil pickup area. So I had to get a new pickup. I did sell all my swap parts, so I had to get a regular pickup here for that. And it's also the high volume one because I have a high volume pump in there. So that stuff combined with an AccuSump eventually will be pretty solid oiling system for this car without a doubt. Should be good. But we're going to get to installing this stuff and cutting up this. I'll show you guys that tomorrow. Alright guys, so this is the new oil pan. Clearly no front sump, just the rear sump. Turns out this pan is pretty much perfect for this swap. It gives you plenty, this is an 8-quart pan, so plenty of oil capacity. It actually sits above the subframe, slightly depending on how the final fitment is, but we can pop this off real quick and flip it over because there's oil in it now. But obviously it wasn't oil before, but we'll show you the inside. That's like the windage tray, and that little lip there is the crank scraper. And in there, if you can see, there's a hinged baffle. So that looks good. Right, guys, so I thought I measured this oil pickup because I just had this apart when I removed the old setup from in here, the old pan and pickup. And I thought I measured this, but apparently I measured it wrong because it's not the right size pickup. So we have to order a new pickup before we can even use this, or even do anything I was going to do today. I can, I guess, maybe still do the rear main. I'm not sure if it'll come off on the stand. But I can't do the gasket and the pickup. I was hoping to get everything just done so I wouldn't have to take the pan off again, but I'm going to have to wait for parts now because I ordered the wrong thing. Alright, so these two are out. If you guys remember, I bought this one at an Advanced Auto Buy a Club Loose event, and it's way too small of an amperage to be running my fuel injection, the fuel pump, and big fans. So it was just because that's all they had at Advanced. So we're going to have to either get my other one, my 140 amp rebuilt, or buy a new one. But when I was removing the water pump, I don't know why this happened. I had the weirdest issue. This bolt literally just locked up. Like, it came out this much, locked up, snapped the head off. Which, this is like a $160 water pump, so I have to get that fixed. If it was like a cheap cast iron one, I'd literally just go buy a new water pump. But that's like expensive. And I'm gonna have to take it somewhere and just have them take it out like a machine shop or something. But anyway, I'm gonna show you guys how this motor plate works. All right, guys, so as you can see, the water pump's off. There is actually a bolt in here I have to take out real quick. I somehow forgot. So I'll pop that out real quick. I don't even know what this bolt was in here for, but those are the bolts we actually need to use. So this motor plate, which is just so beautiful. Look at that raw billet aluminum. Anyway, the motor plate, the way it works is it slips over here, like I was saying. It pretty much goes like that, right there. And what you do is you make this fit. Sorry, the motor is crooked on the stand, but you notch this out for your frame rail. Now you could cut this straight down and just make it fit in between the frame rails, but I feel like in terms of making this as stable as possible and reducing the stress on the bolts that would be holding it between the frame rails, cutting this like an L and making it sit on top of the frame rail is a great option. Plus you can add more bolts to hold it in. Normally you would couple this with a mid plate, which is a thinner plate like this that's steel that goes in the back between the bell housing. That's for high horsepower applications where you have a lot of lateral movement. You can also add lateral limiters to the motor mounts. Once again, for higher horsepower applications, using just the rear solid trans mount in this is enough of a lateral limiter for these from what I've read, so we should be okay. Obviously once this is in and we have it cut to shape, I'm going to trim some of this down because you don't need this big thing. I might leave some though for like securing an oil catch can or something, leave a cool little bump out. But the biggest advantage to running this is where the stock motor mount would be, and actually on this car it would almost be like motor mount straight over to this one. One of the problems is you see how tall this stud is. That means you have to lift the motor up that much to get it out, which makes it a little bit harder. But more importantly, you mess up your header options because your headers come down right through here. And because of how wide this bay is, we shouldn't really have problems with the steering shaft. So to make this a problem is pointless. We're just going to run it like this, do the plate. I'm really excited to try this because clearly I've never done it. Alright, so now that this is all stripped down, I'm going to try and mount the plate to this so we can start to figure out this part. These are the plates I was talking about that I got bent. One has to be trimmed a little bit, but if you look, they got slightly overbent. So I'm gonna have to hammer these back just a little bit so that they are perfect 90. But I was at Lowe's, I forgot. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be cutting that plate today because I was thinking about like the angled cuts to make it look good. So we're not gonna be doing that for like probably a week. And then I remember today I am literally trying to mount this and I have to notch this. This has to get cut off. I didn't pick up the aluminum blade because this intake manifold sticks out about 1/8 of an inch and the plate will not sit flush, so I have to trim it to go right underneath that. And I'm going to try the plasma cutter. If not, I'm going to have to run back out, get an aluminum blade so I can cut. Alright guys, so I just picked up a blade. I can't show you guys. I think it's made by Lennox. It's an aluminum blade. It's amazing. This is some thick stuff and it cut it super clean. This is probably just the blade moving, but the edges aren't even that sharp. Clearly they need to be flap disc, but you're not going to just cut yourself touching them. But here it is, bolted in. This is the clearance I needed. Could have went a little bit tighter, but this gives me a nice bit of room. So it's bolted in with the water pump holes centered up. Now what I'm going to do, my plan for mounting this is making a mark right across the top with a Sharpie. And then using that line with a straight edge on it, once it's in the car, to measure down to the frame rail to see the height between the top of the plate and the frame rail, so I can notch these parts out and this can actually sit in there with the motor. Alright, so we got the motor in here about where it's going to be. I'm going to double check and make sure I can order a smaller crank plate. I'm just going to order a smaller diameter because this is going to hit. I moved it back further to push more weight behind the rear axle, and it actually can go back a little bit more, but this is going to have to be notched as it is. And if I move it back any further, it's actually going to interfere with the linkage. Even here it might, but it'll be a little bit easier to modify. So we got everything pretty much marked out, leveled up. We measured from this line down on each side, and we came up with this measurement that has to be chopped out to create what we want to create. And then this should sit pretty much square. So we're gonna cut this, then bolt it to that motor in theory. It should fit. The lift is still holding the motor up, but I got the plate slipped in. Clearly the bottom edge needs to be trimmed back about half, 3/4 of an inch, but we're gonna drop it and you're gonna see it actually sit on its own weight. So that's the actual mount sitting on it. That's about where the motor's gonna sit. We got a little bit smaller. I just ordered a smaller diameter crank pulley for here, so that is coming in. So this clears, if you noticed before, it was actually sitting on the crank pulley. So we took the crank pulley off, got a smaller one for that. Now we have to make the L brackets. Cut out of here, which are gonna slip over that and give me a 1-inch flange all the way around to bolt onto. So I'm gonna mark this up and cut this out with the plasma cutter. All right guys, so we have both of the plates trimmed back because this edge was a little bit too long. It hung past here where the frame rail rolls back in, and that's where the weld is gonna be. So I had to cut that back. So they're cut back. I got on the plasma cutter, which wasn't the easiest. 1/4-inch thick was around the limit for that thing, but we cut these out. So next up is gonna be drilling these. Probably gonna be 2 here, 2 here, and then drilling the plate to match right there. I also got this in, which is what I was talking about for the crank pulley. This slips in there, bolts on, adds the thickness to the crank pulley because the water pump's gonna be a 1/4-inch out. So this will also make the rest a 1/4-inch out. Put that in the toolbox for now. But we're gonna clean this up, throw some weld through primer on, as well as the plates, get those ready to weld up, weld through primer them, and then weld those on. Alright guys, so this is the weld through primer. Both are plated. I just put this one on, this why it's a little messed up. So it's just a little bit more to dry before we can weld it on. Now this stuff is actually made to literally be welded through, like you can weld right there without messing up your weld, and it protects this from corrosion because you're not going to be able to paint this obviously once this plate's welded in. And if any moisture's in there, it's going to rust out this plate, which is a motor mount, and it can also rust out that frame rail. So we want to avoid that. I use this stuff here. I picked it up when I did my cage. It was just the brand that they had locally, but works good. So next we're going to weld this. Alright guys, so I also took the hood off because it allows a lot more light into the base so you guys can actually see things. But here it is, all welded up. Came out pretty good. Clearly there's a little gap here because the frame rail indents like this. If it was like this, it would literally fit perfect and that would be awesome, but it's not. Some pretty decent beads on there. All down the side. Same over here. Pretty good. If you guys look at my shirt, I don't know if you can see, that's from the ground. Like I was like leaning on the ground when it was still clipped to the core support, and it got so hot it like started to burn my chest. So I moved the ground with the vice grips. But they're welded in now. I still have to weld the bottom side, so I'm about to do that now. And then we're gonna put the motor back in, or no, we're gonna drill the motor plate for the L brackets. They're gonna weld. Just weld the bottom. They look pretty good in there. They're of course very solid. Now, the reason why they're bent at a 90 and not notched perfectly for the frame rail is I do not have a brake at my house that I can bend them with. My dad did them on a hydraulic brake at his job, so it kind of I can't really like, you know, give him a template. Like we can't work on it. It was just a lot easier to do it this way, and it's gonna give the same amount of strength. There's plenty of surface area welded to make these solid, and honestly, I probably ruined some type of factory crush zone. But oh well, cars are already ruined anyway. Alright guys, so we got the motor back in here. I had this in here once before, like just now, and I had to open up this just a little bit. It was too snug, the motor was actually binding up, and I couldn't get it to move without the plate flexing, which isn't good. So we're gonna lower this into place, get our measurement to how you want it, which is 16.5 inches from here to there. And we're gonna get that centered up. Then we're gonna drop in these plates back here and mark the holes on this. And then we're gonna bolt these to it, and eventually we can weld that, but I'd rather wait till I get my crank pulley just to make sure I have clearance. Alright guys, so we got all the holes drilled. Originally I drilled them to 3/8, which is the size of these, but I just stepped it up a little bit, so that way there's a little bit of play, and it'll make installing easier. And then over here in the car, we got the brackets fully welded in. These things are solid as can be. They don't look very square, but they actually are. So I'm gonna take the motor and install it so you guys can see just how easy and quick it is to install this. There's no trans mount right now, so I have to use my jack. I'm gonna put it in and you're gonna see just why this is so cool. So here it is, a lot dirtier, but that's it, like fully installed, which is like pretty crazy. Clearly there's only one bolt over there, two over there. I sucked it all in, and let me say, I've pulled this motor, the KA, the SR20, and this is probably the easiest so far, but that's also because I had a chance to make all this removable and make this. I did make a video about this, like I filmed it, but it really didn't, I just didn't come out like I like, so I didn't post it, but I made this course removable. But anyway, this is so easy to use, which is super exciting. And now that we have it bolted in, I can make a trans mount in the back. I can figure out my headers and stuff, and I can also trim this plate, you know, cut that, probably cut this, probably like to there, the angle, just to make it a little easier and get that hard edge out of there. So we still have some trimming to do, but that's it for now. The motor is pretty level. You know, you can see the bubble, kinda. And if you guys know about these small blocks, this has a 3-degree wedge on the intake. So if you level the intake, it puts the drive line at 3 degrees, which is supposed to be about right. In here, take a peek inside, try not to get in too dirty. If you look down there, you can see tail shaft is in there somewhere. You can't see right now. I think my blue glove came off, but the tail shaft is right underneath the front of that hole. So we're gonna have to relocate the shifter, which sucks. I didn't want to relocate it. It's gonna be a little pain in the ass. We have to do it. So that's it for now, guys. Here she is all in there. Have to notch this out for the distributor cap, maybe move the linkages around, but overall, I think it looks pretty damn good. Yeah, and we have a lot of room for headers on this side. A pair of shorties should tuck right in there. Same on this side. I could probably dent the shaft. Plenty of room to work on your valve covers and stuff. And the new pulley's still in the mail, but I measured. It should fit perfectly with just enough clearance to get the belt on and off, which is what I accounted for. So that's good. And from my thought process, from what I can see, when this is loaded, this is going to swing back, and it's already leaned forward, so it's actually going to gain more clearance. So hopefully there's no interference. If need be, I'll have to order a smaller crank pulley. But that's it for now, guys. Next time we're making trans mount, a couple other things I really have to do. So expect some more videos on that. But this is it for mounting the small block Chevy in the S197 chassis. So I'll see you next time, guys.